Overpopulation and poverty were two of the major problems of Ireland. Jonathan Swift wrote a proposal for preventing these children of poor people from being burdened to their parents or to their country. This book is entitled The Modest Proposal.
Jonathan Swift was an Irish author and satirist. He is best known for writing Gulliver's Travels. He was Dean of St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin, and most of his writings were published in pseudonyms. Jonathan Swift is the writer of the A Modest Proposal for preventing the children of poor people from being a burden of their parents or country, and for making them beneficial to the public. A Modest Proposal is a Juvenalian satirical essay written and published in 1729. The essay suggests that the impoverished Irish might ease their economic troubles by selling their children as food to rich gentlemen and ladies. The character of A Modest Proposal. The proposer. The unnamed speaker in A Modest Proposal is not Jonathan Swift himself, though at first he may appear to be. Rather, he is an exaggerated persona meant to represent a class of people whom Swift especially disdained. The proposer appears to be a wealthy, highly educated Protestant Englishman with little regard for the humanity of Ireland's Catholic poor. George Salmanazar. He was a French literary impostor who claimed to be a native of Taiwan, then called Formosa, and wrote a made-up account of his travels. By that time, A Modest Proposal was written. Salmanazar had been exposed as fraud. The Pretender. The Pretender, mentioned twice, is James Francis Edward Stuart, the son of the recently disposed King James II. James Edward Stuart, a Roman Catholic with the support of the Pope, claimed to be true heir of the British throne, though that claim was denied by the Protestant English. Hence, the nickname they called him by the Pretender. Because he was Catholic, he was favored by the Catholic population of Ireland and became a figure of hope and revolution for them, and much hated by the English. The American. This mysterious character is mentioned only briefly. A friend of the proposer's, he is the first to suggest to him that the flesh of infants is eatable and infant delicious. A very worthy person. This is another friend of the proposer's. This worthy person suggests that the lean flesh of teenagers may be a fitting substitute for venison, which has lately become scarce in Ireland. Purpose of Jonathan Swift why he wrote A Modest Proposal was to help poor children in Ireland with the hope that they would be of service to the public one day. He did not want the children to be a burden to Ireland and their parents. Hi, Yel! How are you?
Hi, Shay! It's been a while. I'm good.
Have you read the book that I have introduced to you last time about A Modest Proposal by Dr. Jonathan Swift?
Yes, and it was so good. Let me share to you the flow of the story. The proposal outline is one of the biggest problems that Irish Commonwealth is facing. Women beggars are everywhere in the streets, and many of them have children whom they cannot support. If nothing is done, these children, like their parents, will end up begging on the street. But the proposer claims to have a plan that will ensure that all poor children of Ireland grow up to become contributing members of the country. The proposer claims to have devoted years of careful thought to this problem. He has weighed the many other plans proposed by civic-minded gentlemen like himself, but has found these plans insufficient to computations. To offer a corrective, the proposer makes some computation of his own. The cost of supporting a child for 1 year is about 2 shillings, which any beggar can certainly manage. By the proposer's count, there are 200,000 Irish couples who are actively breeding. He reckons that of these 200,000 to 30,000 couples are able to provide for their children. An additional 50,000 lose their children to miscarriage or disease within the first year. That leaves 120 couples who are unable to provide for their children, which means that about 120,000 children are born into abject poverty each year. But what to do with them? These children can't be trained in crafts or farming, the proposer claims, because the Irish neither build houses or cultivate land. The children can support themselves by stealing. Either they're too young, nor is selling them into slavery an option, if only because no infant will fetch a worthwhile bribe. At long last, the proposer finally unveils his own plan. He has heard from an American friend that the flesh of a 1-year-old breastfed infant is delicious. So in 120 impoverished children in Ireland, 20,000 will be reserved for breeding in order to maintain the population, while the remaining 100,000 will be reared for a year on their mother's breast milk and then sold to a wealthy gentleman who will eat them. In particular, the children will be sold to wealthy landlords who have already devoured most of the parents and so seem to have best title to the children. The mothers will return a considerably profit by selling their offspring. If they feel extra entrepreneurial, they can even sell the hides of their children, which make for lovely gloves and boots. The proposer then explains that a very worthy person has offered an amendment to this plan. In addition to infants, young teenagers may also be sold, slaughtered, and eaten. Their flesh is apparently similar to venison or deer meat, and the Irish deer population has recently been hunted to extinction. Firstly, he argues the flesh of teenagers is too tough. Secondly, certain sensitive people see the consumption of teenagers as cruelty. The proposer wants to give his friend a little credit. However, this very worthy person got this idea from George Salmanazar, who spoke of an incident on his native island of Formosa, in which a young woman was executed for treason and then eaten by various members of the court. The proposer acknowledged that while his plan will take care of all impoverished children, it fails to account for all the many aging, sick, disabled, and starving adults in Ireland. The proposer shrugs this question off, reasoning that the old and sick are nearing death anyway. Soon, they will no longer be a burden. Now, the proposer begins to list in the detail advantages of his plan. Firstly, the plan will greatly reduce the number of Papists or Catholics in Ireland. These Catholics, who are prolific breeders, insist on remaining at home in Ireland, hoping to deliver the nation to the pretender. They take advantage of the absence of good Protestants, many of whom have left Ireland to avoid paying taxes against their conscience. Second advantage of the proposer's plan, poor Irish tenants will finally have something which to pay off their rent. They are in dire need of this, as the cattle and corn have already been seized by their landlords as collateral. As the third advantage of the proposer's plan, The profits made off the sale of children will total £10,000 per year. All of this money will circulate internally within the country, as the children are all of Irish growth and manufacture. As a fourth advantage of the proposer's plan, those constant breeders who have a new child every year will be relieved to the burden raising of many children at once, as their children will be taken there only after a year. As fifth advantage of the proposer's plan, the practice of eating children will bring great custom to all the local taverns, whose cooks will come to pride themselves on their own preparation of infant flesh and attract gentlemen of taste to their business. As a sixth advantage of the proposer's plan, the Irish people will feel encouraged to marry so they can make some money off their children, and Irish husbands will refrain from beating their wives, choosing to treat them instead as prize livestock. Further, Ireland will be able to exert all the beef and pork that the flesh of infants will inevitably replace. This will be a good for Irish economy. The proposer can think of single worthwhile objection to his plan. Some people might point out that this plan will lead to the decrease of population, but the professor sees this as its chief advantage. Further, all the alternative plans he has heard, such as instilling values of temperance and moderation among Irish people, curbing the nation's reliance on imported goods, taxing landlords who don't themselves live in Ireland, overcoming factions and mutual bitterness, encouraging honesty among shopkeepers and mercy among creditors, strike him as completely impossible to execute. The proposer has already wasted many years on such idle, visionary, and ultimately useless thought. Now, finally, he's found a practical solution. The whole nation is deeply in debt, £2 million collectively, and the proposer's plan is the only one that can fix it. To those who would be bold to attempt a rebuttal to his plan, the proposer makes only one request: that they ask the impoverished parent of Ireland if they would have rather been sold and eaten at the age of 1 than endure the endless series of misfortunes that have marked their lives. The answer, the proposer heavily implies, will be yes. Finally, the proposers note that he can't help but speak sincerely about his plan, because he stands nothing to gain from it. His own child is too old to be sold, and his wife can no longer bear children.
Yes, it's true, yeah. That was the story all about. And actually, his book was a little bit weird, but I like his sincerity to help those children in needs and make those children not to be a burden in their country. So, anyway, I will call you later because I have to go. So, bye for now and thank you.